It's the Advocacy and Spoken Word Weekend. And if you missed it, I'm so sorry. But I am honored to be here with one of my very, very dear friends, the wonderful Obbie West, international spoken word artist. And, we're just going to be all up in his business. But we're going to have some, just a lot of fun and just ask him a few questions. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to piggyback off of our spoken word event yesterday that we had. We had an immersive exercise called Hell Yeah or Hell Nah. We had a lot of fun with it, brought down the house with it, and we're going to continue that. So basically, what I'm going to do, Obbie, is I am going to ask you a series of questions followed by a few scenarios or just some randomness. We're gonna call it randomness that I'm gonna throw out at you. And if you agree, you're gonna say hell yeah. And if you don't agree, you'll say hell nah. And then you'll kind of tell us why, what your perspective is on that.
Okay.
How about that? I'm gonna hand that to you so you'll have it in advance. And I know you. You're my very good friend. I know you. I've been knowing you for a long time now. But there are a few people who don't know you, right? So before we kind of get started, and we're talking about poetry, we're talking about spoken word. Who were you before poetry?
Good question. I don't know, right? Which is why the discovery of poetry was so important. I don't feel like I had an identity. I was in the military, so I was whatever my MOS was. That's who I was. I was the property book officer. I was a father to my daughter. At the time, I was a husband to. So I had all these, what are these inherent titles that comes with a position that you're in, but I didn't have a personal identity. So I don't know who I was prior to poetry. And then with the discovery of poetry, I was able to identify who I am.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. So I think that that's a great segue to my next question. When did you fall in love with poetry?
April. It was April 13th, 2000. No, it was 2013 of April.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 2013. Wait, what year is this right now?
This is 2023.
2023. So it was 2013. April.
Okay, 2020.
Yep.
Okay. So here's another question. You said that you did not know who you were before poetry, and then ultimately you fell in love with it in 2013. When I think about how people are introduced to poetry, all of the different reasons they write poetry, I guess my question to you would be, who do you write for?
Great question. For me first. For me first and foremost. Well, for me second as well. So I write for me. And I think this is a great question because there's a jewel embedded in this answer that a lot of people may be able to use. Some people write, and when they edit what they're writing, they edit it based on the perception of a potential audience that they may be standing in front of. So at that point, they're not writing for themselves. They're writing to create a product that's satisfying to an audience, which might not be what they need in order for them to satisfy the primary reason why they write. So I don't do that. I write with zero consideration of anybody else outside of me. And then I just share it. And if somebody connects with it, then that's great. If somebody doesn't, then there's another point that they will connect with. All right. So yeah, 100% I write for me.
I like that. Okay. What life lessons have poetry taught you?
I've never thought about this question. I've never had this question. A life lesson that poetry has, well, how important expression is, how liberating it is for us as an individual, how important it is to the people around us to gather an understanding of who we are, right? In the absence of understanding, it can be callousness. There can be conflict. So poetry, which is a form of expression, has taught me how important communicating is, not just under the umbrella of art, but just in general.
Do you think that poetry has made you a better communicator? I mean, we're talking about also spoken word, and but we're also talking about love, and we're talking about relationships, right? Um, so, do you feel like poetry has also assisted you in communicating in relationships?
Yes. Well, even prior to that, right? Poetry has made me, I don't know if I want to say a better communicator, but a bolder communicator.
Mm.
Right? There were things that I've been through as a man that I didn't have a space to just talk about in general conversation. But I can go in front of a stage and I'm not talking to anyone in specific and recite a poem about it, and then it still allows me to get it out the way I would have gotten it out if I was talking to a person. Right.
Mm.
And then as men, we grow up and we are conditioned by society's definition of masculinity. And that definition can be very restricting. There's limitations connected to that definition. There's things that we can't do because it deteriorates our image as a man.
Right.
So reciting a poem, it allowed me to hide behind the art because you don't know if I'm talking about myself or not, right? In the beginning, that's what it allowed me to do. Now, I don't care. I don't
Mm.
care if you know it's about me or not. But in the beginning, it allowed me to hide behind the art and I can just say it and you don't know whether it was about me or not. So it made me a bolder communicator. And yeah, without me beating a dead horse, I think that's what it's done for communication for me. It's just made me a little bit more. Yeah.
Do you feel like when you use poetry to communicate with other people, and like you said, it doesn't matter to you whether it's a little bit about you or if they know it's not about you. Do you feel that most of your poetry now is about you? Especially if you don't care. Do you feel like most of it is about you personally?
I think it's 50-50. A lot of it is about me, and then a lot of it is speaking for people who have something that needs to be discussed, but just don't have a platform or a voice to discuss it, or maybe even the courage to discuss it. So I find myself standing in the gap for people who are experiencing situations that aren't innate to me, right? Like I might talk about MS and talk about how it feels to deal with that condition and the things that society should be aware of so that they can have a level of understanding or empathy when they see the condition. But I don't have MS,
Right.
but I know people who do.
Right.
And I've talked to people who do, and they've lent me enough information so that I can represent them because they might not want to.
Right.
Right. So I think it's about 50-50. Well, two answers. It's 50-50 in that sense, but it's 100% in the sense that I get ultimate fulfillment for doing it. So in that sense, it's still about me,
Right.
even when I'm talking about them, because I'm reaping the benefits of the fulfillment. So it's 100% about me in that facet. It's 50-50 in the literal facet.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay. So poetry, love, healthy relationship. And I think even on this journey, when I was talking about wanting to do an advocacy and poetry event, this is our first live spoken word event that we just had, and I'm really excited about it. And I was kind of doing some reflection or um, reflecting on introspection, right? And why it's so important to pour into self, especially in a time when there are so many people dealing with emotional issues, mental health concerns. So I think it's so important to continue to constantly pour into ourselves. And so I have a hell yeah, hell nah for you. Um,
Hold on. Let me get my card.
so, I personally think that perception and perspective is only half of the battle, right? So let me ask you, um, what is your perspective on what is your perspective on this situation? Okay, on this comment, what's your perspective? Love means knowing when to let go and love you more. Is that healthy or unhealthy?
Is it unhealthy to know when to let go? Or does love mean that?
Okay, so love means knowing when to let go and to love you more?
Hell no. Love doesn't mean that. Love is a emotion. Well, you can look at it two ways. Either love is an emotion or love is a feeling that triggers emotion. Either way, that's what love is. The ability to do what you just talked about, that's emotional intelligence. That doesn't always coexist with love. So just because you love don't mean you have the ability to do that. If that was the case, it wouldn't be a such thing as trauma bonds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to say that love means that intelligence accompanies everybody who love. That's not true.
Right.
So no, love doesn't mean that. Emotional intelligence means that.
Okay. I appreciate that. You all heard it. Obbie West perspective. To what depth, if any, has poetry guided your personal relationship?
Poetry has a great deal, but the personal relationship is with me now. Because of the relationship I have with poetry, I haven't allowed myself the space to really, on a consistent basis, engage in anything outside of pursuing that. Right. So my personal relationship is literally personal. And poetry has a large influence in that. I spent 21 years in the military where 70% of my time belonged to that organization. 20% of the time belonged to me, and 10% of the time I was asleep. Right. So now, after being away from that, only thing I want to do is be selfish. I want to donate 100% of my time to what I want to donate it to, because so much of it was given to something else before. Right. So I learned about poetry in 2013. I had been in the Army for about 15 years at that point, if I'm doing the math right. Once that happened, was it then? Let's forget about the numbers. But I was in the Army over 10 years.
Right.
And once I learned about poetry became the most important thing in the world to me. It was more important than the thing that was paying me. I got this institution that's paying me. It's allowing me to take care of my family. It's keeping my daughter eating. And then I have this thing that's not paying me. It's just fulfilling me. And that thing fulfilling me became more important than the thing that was paying me.
Wow.
So now it made the thing that was paying me difficult to do because I wanted to do this. And I can't go leave on the weekend because I'm not going to make it back before Monday to do this. So it became that military became a burden because it wouldn't allow me to do this. But I'd already been in for 10 years. It's too late to turn back.
Right.
Right. So just imagine going that long, wanting to do something at your rate, but can't. As soon as you're able to,
that's the only thing you want to do.
Boom. Right. So to go back to your question, how has poetry influenced my relationship? That is my relationship.
That is your relationship. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about relationships. Hell yeah, hell no.
Okay.
Love is the death of duty. Duty is the death of love.
Love is the death of duty. And duty is the death of love. What does that mean?
What does it mean to you?
It means love is the death of duty. I mean, duty for me sounds like a task, a responsibility, something that you are responsible for doing. Love is the death of that. So that means once I love, I have no more duties. And duty is the death of love, which means if I have a duty, then I don't have time to love you.
Well, I mean, I guess
Is that what it means?
Yeah, I mean, it depends also on how you look at it. Like some people are obligated or feel a sense of obligation to love, right? Because the person that I'm with, because I'm with that person, I'm obligated to love them, right? So because I'm obligated to love that person, is that my duty? Is it my job to love that person because we're together? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the reverse on the opposite.
Okay. Well, no, hell no. I don't think love is anything but a feeling. So if you ask me, because in order for love to have a definition like that, then again, in every case where love exists, that has to exist. That's never going to be the case.
Never going to be the case.
Yeah, you can see 100 instances of love, and there's 100 different components or different component in every instance. One exists here that don't exist here. One exists. So how do you define it when it's so fluid, when it's different everywhere you see it?
Right.
So it's always going to be hell no. If you ask me, is love anything other than a feeling, right? It's a feeling first. And then that feeling is an emotion. And based on that feeling, we decide how we want to respond to the emotion. And that's where you get all this stuff.
Right.
That's where you get the duty. That's where you get all is how we decide to respond to that emotion. But love is the feeling that caused the emotion. And everything else is our response.
Okay. I like it. I like it. So I have this question, but I think I may know the answer. I don't know. We'll see. So if love is an emotion, right? And right now you're in a relationship with self and your poetry. I guess I'm looking at it from love no longer being an emotion for you. So let me ask you this. What space does love have to occupy to exist for you outside of it just being an emotion?
What space does love have to occupy?
Yeah. And maybe it doesn't have to occupy space.
What space? I'm not even sure if I understand the question. What space does love have to occupy? You mean, how does love have to show up?
How does love have to show up? How does it have to occupy your space?
In order for it to be receptive. How does love have to show up in order for me to be open to receive?
Correct.
Open-minded. Open-minded. Love can be based on definitions we've been given of love. If you are how you say that word? Bibla, people that's into the Bible. Biblophobic.
Bibla.
It's a word. It's a real word.
Okay.
And it means people who are absolute, Bible heads, right?
Okay.
There's Corinthians.
Mm-hmm.
Corinthians has a definition. Those individuals may be restricted to the boxes of that definition. Some people have come up with a definition for themselves. They're restricted to that definition. Anything that doesn't look like that, they don't call it love, right? So I think for me, it can't have those restrictions because love has to be, I won't say redefined because I don't believe it has a definition. It has to be re-explored in how we decide to use it in every situation. You even have kids, somebody who has 5 kids, and the way that you demonstrate love towards that kid might not work towards that kid. So even within your household, you have to be able to love in 4 or 5 different ways in order to effectively parent, right. Which means your love has to be open-minded for you to effectively parent these kids. So that's how love would have to show up in order for me to be receptive.
So it has to be very fluid. You have to be able to move.
It has to be allowed to be what it is. You ever seen a lion in the zoo? Mm-hmm. He's in a cage walking around in circles. He just looks depressed. Way more depressed than a lion that's in a field that can run his foot, right? That's what happens when you define love. Right. You put it in the zoo in one of those cages. It's not made for that. It's made to be able to run the plains. Right. So when it shows up, it can't show up caged like that. It has to show up ready to run the plains.
Run the plains.
Right.
All right. I like it. I like it. Okay. Okay. Here's another hell yeah, hell no. Complaining to everyone about your partner except your partner. Is that healthy or unhealthy?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, that's unhealthy. I don't even know if we need to elaborate.
No, I don't think we need to elaborate. Do you find yourself drawn to other creatives? And how do you maintain a working relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I find myself drawn to other creatives, whether I know them personally or not. Their inspiration. My inspiration to start writing came from other creatives. So I'm a composition of a bunch of other creators. So I'm definitely drawn to other creators. And the second half of the question was,
how do you maintain healthy working relationships?
With creatives?
With other creatives if you're drawn to them. Or if I guess it's fair to say that's if you have a working relationship with them.
How to maintain a health. I think that answer is consistent whether or not it's with another creative or not. How to maintain a healthy relationship, a healthy working relationship is one. You have to start by identifying a common goal. Do we have a common goal? And if we have a common goal, then I think that's the foundation that says we may be able to work together. Then we have to check our moral posture and see if our moral posture is aligned. Say we have a common goal, and our common goal is to do shows, right? But for me, my priority is that the customer has the greatest experience, even if we can't profit as much. Your priority is we need to profit as much as possible, even if we got to kind of lie on this flyer.
Right.
So even though we have a common goal, our moral posture isn't the same.
Mm.
So make sure we have a common goal, make sure our moral postures are aligned. I can probably go on forever about how to maintain a healthy relationship. I think boundaries, being able to establish boundaries and enforce those boundaries between each other and for your business, right?
Mhm.
Whenever you start running a business, there's going to be people who have entitlement, who feel like they should have favor to whatever it is that business has to offer. Most of the time, those people are related to us, right? So if I'm a business partner with you and we have a product and my people feel like I should be able to get a discount on that product, how does that affect my business partner?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I have to
Yeah.
have boundaries and be able to enforce those boundaries. And honesty.
Mm.
Absolutely got to be honest. If it's somebody who you're a business partner with, you want a joint account, you both got access to it. There got to be some level of integrity, right? In the
Absolutely.
absence of integrity, there's death.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can kill
yeah.
a business partner.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, that kind of was my next question, which was um, how much energy do you lend to up and coming poets, and how do you maintain a healthy relationship in that? One of the things that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you that question, first of all, is because I know that I see so many poets that are collaborating. And like you just said, you know, some of the work that you get is mentors, you're inspired by other creatives, that kind of thing. So how much energy do you lend to up and coming poets that actually reach out to you and say, hey, I've got an idea, or I want to run something back to you? How much time do you spend with them, and how do you maintain boundaries there?
I lend as much as I have that allows me to remain healthy, right? I never assume the title of being a mentor, but I always make myself available if somebody has a question for me, right? If it's up to me to try to determine whether or not what's being required is overbearing.
Mm.
So when I start to feel like it's overbearing, then I do what I have to do in order to keep myself safe, psychologically safe, as far as my health, all those things. So it's a feeling. I mean, you can tell when someone's asking you something, they're receptive to the information, then they go out and they try to apply it. Maybe they'll come back a couple months later, and then you can tell where some people I don't need to try to figure out resources for me to get what I need to know. I'll just use you as the resource.
Mm.
Like other people, it's like, I'm going to try my best to figure it out everywhere else. And when I feel like I've hit a wall, then can I come to you? Absolutely.
Mm.
Right. But then when it's like, I don't need to look for myself. I
Mm.
just go get it from this cheat sheet. Right. That's when it can start feeling overbearing. And if it starts to feel like that, then I just do what I need to do for me.
Mm. Givers are always going to give, takers are always going to take.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that is a part of the boundaries that we have to be mindful of.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are a person that ultimately loves to give, and you're giving something of yourself because you're passionate about art, is your passion, right? Poetry is your passion. So it's easy for you to give and to want to support and to want to help. But you're right. If you don't find kind of decide what that boundary is, then it's easy for people to push past it. Because I remember one time we were talking, and we were talking about boundaries, and we were saying that when we think about boundaries, boundaries are the boundaries that we make for ourselves, right? Because ultimately, people are going to try to push past those boundaries because they're not their boundaries, they're yours. So I want to tell you thank you so much for sharing that with me when you did, because it was so true. When we set boundaries, the boundaries that we set are for ourselves and not necessarily for the other person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What can make that difficult is sometimes our own body works against us, right? Sometimes our heart is in favor of the other person more so than it is for us. Our heart will do something for someone else that doesn't even serve us well. So our heart doesn't even help us set the boundary.
Yeah.
We got to set boundaries for our own hearts. Sometimes we end up caring about situations outside of us or investing more in that than we do to ourselves. We got to go reel our heart in. Like, what is you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that's what makes setting boundaries so difficult, is your body works against you in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. What are you intentional about today?
What am I what?
What are you intentional about today?
What am I intentional about? being happy, being at peace. It's always something I'm intentional about. There's a list of things, but if I have to give you the thing that jumps out, yeah, being at peace is my priority in every situation. Anything that doesn't feel peaceful, I'm out of there. I think the only level of, or the only threat to my peace sometimes is like my begging ass daughter. She's getting better now. As she gets older, she doesn't need as much, or she needs things that I don't have a problem supporting. She like, Daddy, can you help me with this business thing? I'm like, here it goes. Right. Before, when it was like, can I just get some shoes? Like, wait, what? All right. So, but she's the only thing that can threaten my peace, and I'll just deal with it. Other than that, zero tolerance for anything that threatens my peace.
And you want to know what's funny? So I'm asking you that question, and I'm hearing you answering it, and I'm saying to myself, okay, so baby girl's gonna come up. He's gonna be talking about her. She's gonna be the one that disrupts it. That's what I'm saying to myself. Yeah. And you articulate, you say it out loud. So, but that's a good thing to interrupt your peace, your daughter, and want to help her, support her. So, that's okay. People share. Sometimes people overshare. Sometimes in relationships, we say we want to know who this person is, right? You're dating, you're trying to get to know them better. And sometimes it's hard because people tend to put forward what they want you to see, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not always who they really are.
Right.
So my question to you is transparency or honesty? Which one is more important to you?
Transparency or honesty? Right now, as I'm thinking about the answer to that question, I can't separate them.
Ooh.
I think they're synonyms.
Okay.
I don't know how I can be transparent without being honest. Even if I'm transparent non-verbally, even if I cry in front of you, I'm honest that something is hurting me versus me trying to hold those tears back until you're not around. Then I'm being emotionally deceptive. So I don't know how I can be transparent without being honest. And I really don't know how I can be honest without being transparent. But those are synonyms. I don't know how I can separate them. You gave me some time to think about it, and I answered that question tomorrow. Maybe I'll have something different. Right now, I'm married to what I just said.
Okay. But I'm going to ask you tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you tomorrow. Because when I thought about that question, I thought about previous relationships, right? And I'm like, you know what? There are definitely times when I've talked to people and they were honest. Mm-hmm. They're honest people, but they weren't transparent. So what they allowed me to see was what they think I wanted to see, or vice versa.
Okay.
So I appreciate that the two of them align for you. I can receive that. So thank you so much. But I'm going to come back and ask you tomorrow.
Okay.
You're going to be like,
hell no.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hold on.
All right.
Allow people to be who they need to be, even if that doesn't include you. Is that healthy or unhealthy?
Because I'm going to do it. Hell yeah. Yeah.
Let them be who they need to be.
Yeah, I'm going to be me everywhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do that. I think we allow people to be, we just talked about transparency and honesty. So how can you demand transparency and honesty, but then not allow me to be who I want to be?
Right.
Being who I want to be is being transparent. So you can't tell me to be transparent and honest, but then say fake. All right.
Right.
It's very conflicting. So I think if we want transparency and we want honesty, the epitome of that, it was allowing people to be who they need to be. We talk about when you first meet people, the cliche, they always show their representative, and right, and we don't like that.
Right.
So it'd be hypocritical to shun the idea of that, but then in the next voice, only want people to be who we want them to be in order to satisfy what we want from them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think when people like you just said, people show up with the representative. And a lot of times you don't get to see that person, who they are. My mom used to say, or my grandmother used to say, come see me and come live with me is two different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're with that person in an open space, they're one way. But then when you're behind closed doors or you're with them, they're a completely different way. How long does it take for you to see that a person who you're with, and not when I say with, I don't mean like necessarily intimately,
I know what
but
you
a person that you're sharing space with, that you're like, you know what, this is probably going to be an unhealthy situation for me. I need to remove myself. Are you able to make that determination very early on if a person is showing up with their real self, so to speak?
I think it depends on how good they are at being who they want you to see.
Mm.
So I don't feel like I have a spidey sense that no matter how good you are at being phony, I can just sniff it out. I don't think I have that. So they got to make a mistake, right? They got to slip up. They got to show some inconsistencies. They have to, they got to be hypocritical in ways. They're a lot of people, their moral posture, what they believe in, it changes based on the dominant person in the room. So if I'm around you and I'm talking about, I believe in this thing, and then someone who I feels like can be a benefit to me, maybe it's somebody who is in a higher position or something, they have a different perspective. Now I'm, to their perspective, when it was completely different. So a lot of people, what they believe in change based on who's the dominant person in the room. So when you see those type of things, so that person has to slip up in some way. But I don't think I have just like
You can't just
I
read
can just
people.
scan the room and be like phony, cool, phony, cool.
Yeah. But people say that. They're like, oh, I'm really good at reading people.
People can.
Right.
Yeah, people can. But I think I'm capable of being fooled, right? I'm not naive. So you gotta be good to do it, but it's doable.
Okay. All right. Healthy or unhealthy? Hell yeah, hell no.
Uh-huh.
You ready?
Yeah.
All
So
right.
what you asking me if this is healthy or if it's unhealthy?
Healthy or unhealthy? So this is a hell yeah, hell no.
Hell yeah if it's healthy and hell no if it's not.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. She's looking for a little less nice guy and a lot more all right now.
Yeah, she's looking for a little less nice guy, a little bit more all right now.
With no disrespect or belittling. Give her a little look like her soul,
Like her
is
soul is
in
in trouble.
trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that healthy or unhealthy?
Hell yeah, and I'll tell you why, and then I'm gonna tell you hell no and why.
Okay.
All right. Depends on the chemistry between the two individuals, especially from the perspective in which that poem was written. There's some behaviors between certain people that can absolutely exist, and it's what they need in order for them to keep their relationship the way they want it to be. And there's no unhealthy aspect to it. That same approach with someone else can be offensive. Right? And we're not talking about objectively bad stuff like physical abuse. That's just bad regardless. Even if the person who's being abused thinks it's an indication of love, that's just bad. But when we're talking about a certain level of sternness when it comes to enforcing the standard, a healthy standard like financial literacy and financial responsibility, um, that can be very healthy depending on who you're with. And then that same approach can be unhealthy in other environments. Yeah, but those lines right there, healthy.
Obbie, I have heard this whole poem, and so I know it. Could I get you to share that poem
I don't even
with
know
us?
if I know the whole poem.
You know the poem.
Honestly, I don't even know if I know the whole poem. I can't even start it. I don't even know how it starts. If I knew how it starts, I might be able to get through it. So before the end of this conversation, if it comes to me, I'll give you as much of it as I can.
Okay. I had to dig for that one.
Yeah.
I had to dig for that one. But I thought it was so right on time. Okay. So we've been talking about relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Love, unhealthy relationships, boundaries, and it's been It's been a great conversation, and I appreciate your candor through it all. So if you was to kind of sum up healthy or unhealthy relationships, what does that mean ultimately for who you are today?
For who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this question isn't a general question that applies to the public. This is what a healthy relationship looks like for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For me, peace of mind for both individuals is first and foremost. In order for me to feel like I'm in a healthy situation, I absolutely need levels of space. I don't feel like they say we are herd people.
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm a herd. I feel like I'm a herd person, but I don't feel like I'm a herd person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in order for me to coexist, I'm going to need a recess. You know what I mean? That would be healthy for me. Building is huge for me. Like it needs to be something to where every month, every quarter, both of us are in a better place based on our definition of a better place. This person might be into that and I might be into this. I'm not into what she's into, but I'm into her advancement. So I'm a sister in what she's into because her advancement and vice versa. So I'm not even this person is expediting the pace at which I'm building because of their presence and vice versa. That's extremely healthy for me. What else? Communication. Communication is extremely healthy for me. Not tooth pulling type communication where I'm gonna put these pliers around your front teeth, and if you don't say nothing, I'm talking about just very, very fluid and voluntary communication would be healthy for me. What else? Yeah, I think that probably doesn't sum it up, but in large, those are some of the things.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And again, we're here, Obbie West, Candid, live, and maybe not so much in his business like I told him behind the scenes I was going to be all up in his business, but definitely sharing, and we appreciate it. And again, just coming out and talking to us about healthy and unhealthy relationships from your perspective, and how what you need for a healthy relationship. And there's so many people who are in unhealthy relationships, and a lot of times they don't even realize it because it's become their new norm and they accept it. So I think anytime we're in a space where we can identify that there's something wrong with this relationship and do what we need to do as individuals for ourselves, and I say like escape, from that situation, I think those individuals need to be rewarded and just, shout out and just say, you're not alone, and keep up the great work because it's just detrimental to your mental health,
Right.
Everyone, I just want to say thank you so much. Obbie, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you. I'm so honored to call you my friend. And I'm so glad that you were able to do this with me. So again, for all of you that missed us yesterday, I'm so sorry. We had a great time. But we look forward to seeing you at the next event. And hopefully, if we're blessed enough, we can get Mr. West to come out and join us for another event here in the Queen City. Yes, maybe. Undecided. Okay. All right. So anyway, until next time, everyone, continue to be unstoppable.